Clutter may seem like a small thing when you first think about it. It starts out as just little piles here, a little something there. A lot of us tend to brush it off and think that clutter's really not a big deal. The problem is that clutter kind of tends to grow and spread, and before you turn around twice, it seems like every corner or every surface is covered with stuff. Clutter just seems to grow like crazy, doesn't it? If we're not careful, before we look around twice, we can find that clutter has simply overtaken our home and overtaken our life. However, taking some steps now can help us deal with clutter. Hi, if we've not met before, I'm Shelley from Taming Frenzy. The best way to deal with clutter is to deal with it right at the moment. When you look around and see a surface that's got some extra stuff on it that doesn't belong there, deal with it right then. Find it a home, dispose of it, give it to somebody else. But to deal with it right then when it's small is a whole lot easier than waiting until you look around and realize the whole house has just been overtaken with clutter. But a lot of times our problem is we think that, okay, I've had a big mess, now I've cleaned it up, I've organized, I've tidied, I've decluttered, and we tend to think the process is one of those one and done kind of things. Dealing with clutter is never one and done. I don't know how, sometimes it feels like magic, but clutter has a way of creeping back into our house whether we want it to or not. However, there are some definite benefits to staying on top of clutter and keeping it out of our house and out of our life. The first benefit that comes from getting rid of your clutter is alleviating your stress. We sometimes don't realize it at the moment, but when we look around and we see a little pile here and a little pile there and a little mess off over there, it is something that is stressful. Just looking at objects that are out of place and that are messy causes us internal stress. Sometimes it causes us stress because as we look at it, we think to ourselves, oh, great, now I got to get busy and clean that stuff up. And that causes us stress as well. Sometimes just thinking about how much work it's going to be to get rid of stress is enough to really make us not want to do the job at all. The other side to that is when we get ready to go to sleep at night, if there's clutter sitting around, especially in the room where we sleep in our bedroom, those kind of things kind of scream at us even though we don't always realize that they are, and it can affect our sleep, which of course ties back into the level of stress that we're feeling. Bottom line is, we don't operate at our best when we feel stressed or when we're sleep deprived. So the second benefit of tackling some of that clutter is the fact that you're going to get better sleep. We walk into a hotel room and we look around and we feel like, wow, this just looks so nice and clean, because it is. Because it hasn't had clutter and junk come in. And when I say junk, I'm not making a value judgment. It's just another word for stuff. Okay. But we look at a hotel room and it is uncluttered and there is space and it feels nice. Our own bedrooms can feel the same way if we'll stay on top of the clutter and not let it accumulate. Our bedroom should be the place where we walk in and feel calm and feel restful and feel peaceful and know that we're going to get a good night's sleep. And the way to ensure that this happens is to stay on top of clutter all the time. When you bring the clothes in from having washed them, fold them, put them away instead of laying them over on a chair or hanging them on the treadmill or leaving the laundry basket over in a corner and telling yourself, I'll get to that later. The way to deal with that clutter in your bedroom is to not let it accumulate in the first place. A third benefit of getting rid of clutter is you're going to get rid of a lot of allergens in your house. When you've got piles of paper or art projects or whatever it be, it is almost impossible to keep your house from getting a little bit dusty and, all of those kind of things. We're more likely to get cobwebs in the corner because we've got piles of things around, and those allergens just kind of build up until they begin to affect our health. Having too much stuff around makes it hard to really clean the house because then you have to move everything in order to dust, in order to get into the cobwebs in the corner. You have to move things to be able to vacuum or sweep really well to get things out of your house. The clutter that's sitting there on top of surfaces makes it really easy to ignore the dust and the allergens and the mess that's underneath that pile. So take a look at that clutter that's sitting around and ask yourself, do you love it enough to be miserable in keeping it? Clutter also takes a toll on our confidence. You've probably had this happen. I know I have. The doorbell rings. You think to yourself, oh my gosh, someone's at the door. And you hope and you pray that they're not going to want to come in your house. But you go to the door and some reason or another, they need to step inside. And you are left turning red with embarrassment and making excuses for the way the house looks. And you're just humiliated by the way your house looks. It is hard to feel confident in your home and even in yourself, to be real honest, when your house is a big cluttered mess. Sometimes it seems like we'll go to great lengths to keep anybody from being able to even peek inside the doors of the house. Another benefit of getting rid of clutter is the increased productivity that you will experience. Simply getting rid of the clutter that you've already got is a productive act in itself. And if we incorporate regular decluttering activities into our routine, we will feel productive every time we do that. But let's be honest about something. Decluttering is not just picking up the pile in the living room and moving it over to the dining room on that table so that the living room looks okay, but now the dining room's a big mess. Dealing with clutter means dealing with it and either getting rid of it, finding it a home, or something else. It doesn't mean moving the pile from here and making a pile over there. Clearing some of that stuff out boosts your mood, makes you feel more confidence in ways that you may not even really realize until you begin to do it. A fifth benefit of getting rid of clutter is you may find some items that you thought you had lost. Now, this can be embarrassing for a lot of us to admit, but when we get to, getting rid of the stuff, sometimes we'll uncover an important document that we have been searching through the files for and we couldn't find it. Or one time I found a set of keys that had been missing for 6 months because they were, in a mess of some stuff that I hadn't looked in. Now, I know there are people who have cluttered houses who will tell you they know where every single thing in their house is. They probably really don't, to be real honest. Now, they may point to a box and say, oh, well, that's over there in that box. And maybe it is. But if something is important and if it's just stuck over there in a box, first off, how important can it be? And unless you've got the contents labeled, you're not really sure something is there. Every item in your home needs a place to live, and that's not just shoved down in a box with a whole bunch of other stuff. Especially if you have sentimental items, you don't want to just have them shoved over in a box. Your sentimental items should be gotten out. They should be honored. They should be given a prized place in your home, to be given the respect and the honor that you feel towards the person that you got them from or towards the event. Anything that's truly important to you deserves something better than just living in a box with a lot of other stuff. A sixth benefit of decluttering is the process itself will force you to make intentional choices about what you're going to keep and what you're going to get rid of. When you're going through your stuff, if you ask yourself, Marie Kondo says, does it spark joy? I might not go quite that far, though that's certainly not a bad thing to ask. But do you love something enough that you want to keep it? Do you use it? Does it have meaning to you? Is it useful? And it forces you to become intentional in the things that you decide to keep in your home and find a place for, and then make those decisions that are so easy to put off by just putting things in a pile. It forces us to get intentional about the things we're going to keep in our homes. A seventh benefit of decluttering is it's going to improve the energy flow in your home. Now, whether you believe anything, having to do with feng shui or not, that's up to you. I'm certainly not going to tell you what you have to think. That's your call. But it is possible to notice a difference between how a home that is cluttered feels and how a home that is decluttered and organized and tidy feels. That cluttered home feels kind of closed in and kind of may make us feel a little bit claustrophobic, or it may make us feel like we're drowning in stuff, sometimes literally, in some cases. But there's a difference in the way it feels. A decluttered home with intentional choices feels lighter. It automatically feels, because it is, cleaner. It feels healthier, and it just makes it a happier place for us to spend time. And this improved energy flow can affect and impact everybody who visits your home, in addition, of course, to the other people that live with you. You'll find that not only do you feel calmer and more peaceful and relaxed, but that so do the other people in your home. And that's never a bad thing for the people that you share space with, to feel that improvement in their mood and disposition. An eighth reason to get rid of clutter is you're going to save money. How many of us have gotten started in some project and said to ourselves, well, I just know I have a set of pinking shears around here someplace, but for the life of you, you start tearing through drawers and go into your sewing kit or anywhere else where you might have stuck the pinking shears, and by golly, you just can't find those pinking shears anywhere. So what do? You go to the store, you buy another set of pinking shears, and then later when you declutter, you find that original set of pinking shears, and now you have 2 sets of pinking shears, which, unless you can work pinking shears with both hands at the same time, you really don't need. By getting rid of a lot of the clutter and the extraneous stuff, you will save money because you will not be going to the store to purchase duplicates or replacements for items that are just buried because you can't find them in amongst all of the clutter. You might think of it like this too. If I have just cleaned out my closet and realized that I have 8 black sweaters, and I decide that I'm going to donate half of those, I'm going to be a little more conscious the next time I go shopping or order something and realize that I just got rid of a bunch of black sweaters. I probably don't need another one. So that's another way that getting rid of your clutter will save you money. And finally, there is something about getting rid of the clutter that it causes your gratitude factor to go up. There's something about having a lot of stuff around that causes us to just kind of begin to take everything for granted. There's just always stuff there. We don't intentionally think about it. It's just there, and we probably don't really appreciate it because there is so much. You may have noticed, if you're a parent, that when your kids were young, if they had just 1 or 2 things to play with, they were grateful for those 1 or 2 things. But if they had an entire room full of toys, they did not take as good a care of them because there were so many. Once we start getting rid of the things that are not really that important to us, we begin to appreciate and realize the value in the things that we're keeping. So those are some benefits of getting rid of the clutter at your house. Now, I'm not one who says you should tear up your house and start decluttering every single room at the same time. Goodness knows I don't. I would be so frustrated at the humongous mess, because it would be a humongous mess, that I would end up paralyzed and not really being able to do a very good job on any of it. Take your decluttering in smaller steps. Maybe start with one particular portion of a room or start with one section of a closet. Declutter that. Get it the way you want it to look and to feel and to function. Get those items either assigned to a home or out of your house before progressing on to the next one. Don't try to tackle everything at once because it is just way too overwhelming for the most of us. Your decluttering efforts will pay off. You will feel better. You will function better. Your mood and disposition will improve, and your confidence will go up. The other side benefit is you will have passed those items along to someone else who probably could really use them and will be grateful for them. That's a pretty good investment for your time and your energy. Is there a particular area in your home that gives you the most trouble with clutter? If so, leave me a comment. I'd love to know what it is. And in the meantime, go tame some of your frenzy.